Sorry, can I just say, YJet kinda, maybe Katara had a point. I'm in bed, I'm comfy, and I'm ready to talk about some Avatar. Let's go. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The original animated series is arguably one of my favorite shows of all time. Everything about it is perfect. The world building, the characters, the character development, and I also love that every episode is important, even the fillers. Even though they don't advance the plot, they still develop the characters more and develop the characters' relationships more. So yeah, 10 out of 10 show. So like I said, it's almost perfect. So honestly, with an adaptation, there was really nowhere for them to go but down. And I know a lot of people have been making videos talking about their reactions to the show. So honestly, I don't think I'm saying anything new here with this video, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents and also hear what you guys thought. Honestly, my thoughts are kind of 50-50. There were some parts that I absolutely loved and some parts where I was like, why did they do this? And I also just wanted to say I appreciate the work that everyone involved in the live action put into it, because you can tell that they really loved and cared about the show. And I think by itself, the show is not terrible, but obviously compared to the original, it was just no contest. But yeah, I'm gonna get into my opinions. But also, if you guys are interested in Avatar content, I made this Avatar violin medley a few years ago if you guys are interested. I'll put a link on the screen and in the description. But yeah, now for my thoughts on the show. So obviously, spoiler warning for the original show and the live action, but if you're here, I'm assuming you've seen one or both already. And if you haven't seen the original, what the hell are you doing? Go watch it right now. So before I watched the show, my biggest worry was that they were gonna make huge plot changes that just like destroy the integrity of the story. And my biggest pet peeve with adaptations is when they change things for no reason that affect the characters or the plot. And at first, I actually liked the changes they made. I thought they actually enhanced the story and told it in a different way. But the further we went on, the bigger and more unnecessary the changes felt. But yeah, starting with what I liked, I loved the costume design and design of the setting. Basically, everything they adapted from the show looked exactly like what it looked like in the cartoon, which was so cool to see. Literally, in the first couple episodes, I was like, this looks exactly like what it looks like in the original, and I like literally started like tearing up. I was like, I love this show so much, and they brought things to life so well. And then I also really love the music. There are some parts where they put like pretty much the exact music that was from the show. For example, like the end credits. And then they also kind of adapted like the main themes, and there's also one specific song that I was like, this is amazing, but we'll get to that later. So now I wanted to talk about the characters. Most of the characters, except for a couple, felt super different from the original. And honestly, I feel like this mostly can be attributed to the writing. I felt like the dialogue was a bit iffy on some scenes. It just didn't feel super convincing, you know? And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like some of the acting wasn't that great either. I don't want to say who specifically, because I don't want to be like mean about it, but some of the acting, I was like, it doesn't feel like this is a person talking. It feels like someone making a speech or like making some grand announcement. So some of it just didn't feel very natural. The other thing was just like, the vibes are different. Like some of the characters, they just didn't act like how they acted in the show. Honestly, just by watching cast interviews, I feel like the cast acts more like their characters in real life than they do in the show. Again, I feel like that's an issue with the writing. By far, the character that felt most similar to the original was Sokka. Ian Owsley did a great job portraying Sokka's goofiness and also sarcasm. The vibes felt right, the character felt right, the dialogue felt right, like everything about Sokka just felt pretty similar to the original. I think Zuko also was pretty similar to the original, and honestly I'm kind of biased because Zuko is my favorite character, but I really liked the new scenes they added with him, and I feel like they actually developed his character more deeply earlier on in this show than they did in the original. Because in the original, you like kind of know of his backstory and how he got a scar and that kind of stuff, and how he's trying to reclaim his honor, but you don't really see like as much of like how he was before everything that happened to him until later in the show. You don't get as many flashback scenes in the original, but in this show they put a couple more that help establish his character. And I'll talk more about those later because there's a couple scenes they added of Zuko that I really loved. So one thing that they did kind of change is like, he never says honor a single time in this show. It's kind of memed on in the original, but I feel like one thing they were trying to do with this show is make it more realistic. So he never specifically says the word, but he says other stuff that basically implies the kind of person he is. There's this one part where they're at Omashu and there's like Fire Nation soldiers that are supposedly bombing parts of the city, but Zuko is basically like, it's unlike the Fire Nation to do stuff like that, to be like sneaky and do secret attacks instead of just attacking their enemy head on. And then there's this other part where one of his crew members is talking shit about Zhao behind his back, and Zuko is basically like, you shouldn't talk about your superior like that. So there's like definitely scenes where it shows that he has integrity, and so I think that's their way of of showing him valuing honor without explicitly saying it. And now my thoughts on Aang. So I think by far one of the biggest character changes was Aang. Like, his personality was completely different. Instead of being like super goofy and kind of avoiding his responsibilities as the Avatar, in this show he's like, all the airbenders have been wiped out and he should repay their sacrifice by facing his responsibilities as the Avatar head on and mastering all 4 elements. And honestly, I feel like to some extent that feels more realistic, in that, like, you know, if it was me and like all my countrymen were wiped out low-key because of me, I would be like, I should avenge them and like do what I can to like fight against the people who like killed them in the first place. That's what I would do. But you see, I am not a 12-year-old boy, so I see like how it makes sense that Aang would want to goof around like he does in the original, but also the sense of responsibility he feels as they portray in the live action. I just feel like they could have him feel that way without changing his entire personality, because in the show he's like pretty serious. Like, he has his moments where he like talks about how he acts goofy, but he never actually acts goofy in the show. I feel like they made this change because they wanted an excuse to cut away all the extra filler so they can get through the plot in 8 episodes, but I feel like they could have done it in a different way that didn't require changing his entire personality. And also, here's the other thing. He says that he wants to embrace his responsibilities as the Avatar, but bro doesn't even waterbend at all during this season. I reached the end, I was like, bro, what? Next character, Azula. I feel like her vibes are just like not there. Like, she is not even remotely crazy enough. Like, what I love about Azula in the original is that she's kind of unhinged, she's ruthless, and she's scary. Again, I feel like they're trying to make it more realistic by portraying it as Ozai pitting her and Zuko against each other, and that's like the source of their conflict, which is true, but I just feel like Azula isn't Azula without a couple screws loose. And also, her fire, it's blue for like 2 seconds at one point, but for the rest of it, it's just the same color as everyone else's. Again, why? I feel like part of Azula's thing is that she's like super powerful for her age. She's like a bending prodigy, basically. So I feel like the blue fire also adds to that. Roku, again, he feels completely different from the original. Bro is like just like randomly goofy, which is kind of weird. Low-key, I feel like he and Aang switched personalities. And also, he's like not in it until like halfway through the show, and he only shows up for like a little bit. He's supposed to be one of Aang's like biggest mentors throughout the show, and he's just like not there. June, Arden Cho was like the perfect casting. Yeah, that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to point it out. Last character, Cabbage Man. He says the line. He says the line. Okay, moving on to specific stuff from specific episodes. So I'm not gonna go through and talk about like exactly what happens in every episode and every single change they make. I just wanted to talk about like the biggest changes they made and just like the things that I was most passionate about when I was watching the show. So some of these are just gonna be like random thoughts and comments that aren't really that important, but I just wanted to say them. To start out, honestly, I actually quite liked the first half of the show, like the first 4 episodes-ish. But after that, they started changing more and more to the point where I was like, this is too much. So the first episode, so they start out the show 100 years in the past, right before Sozin's comet happens. So they show how Aang was with Gyatso and how he was just like at the air temple. And then later they show Sozin's comet and them wiping out the airbenders. Okay, couple thoughts. First, when they first show Aang, bro literally flies, like without a glider. I saw that and I was like, bro, why? First of all, this completely goes against what happens in Korra with Zahir and being able to fly by like letting go of your earthly attachments. Second of all, I don't even know why they put this in, because every other time in the show he needs a glider to fly. So like, what was the point of adding that if he was just like never gonna do it again? But yeah, going back to the Sozin's comet thing, I thought it was actually pretty cool how they started the show in the past and kind of did it like chronologically, I guess, instead of starting where they started in the original. It was a cool change, and it was a cool way to show something we know happened in the original but never saw. But one thing I must say though is like the burning. Like during the attack on the air temples, there were several parts where like they're literally like burning people and you can like hear them scream as they die. Like, I was like, bro, this is like a little too much. And this show is rated PG, by the way. Like, if I was a child and I watched this, I think I would be traumatized, like dead ass. Moving on, episode 2. This is where we get introduced to the Kyoshi warriors and Suki. And okay, again, I don't think Suki's character really felt like how she felt in the original, but I did like how they showed Sokka and Suki's relationship. I thought that was like pretty funny and it was like pretty cute. Omashu. Okay, so this is where I feel like they started deviating from the plot like quite a bit. Honestly, I didn't care about it too much at this point. It was still like tolerable, but then, like I said, as it goes on, it gets worse. So in the next episode, that's when Boomy shows up, and they completely change Boomy's character and just like everything that happens in the original like Boomy episode. Honestly, I feel like they just like missed the point. In the original, it's like Boomy playing these games with Aang and trying to teach Aang to like think outside the box, and then at the end, like he has to figure out like what Boomy's name is. But in this show, Aang figures out he's Boomy like right away, and then they changed Boomy's character. Like bro was like emo. He kept talking about how like Aang didn't have to live through 100 years of war and see his country be torn apart. It was like kind of weird. And then the other thing was Boomy was like so clearly played by like a young dude in old makeup, and it like really threw me off, especially during the part where like he fights Aang. Like obviously like bro takes his shirt off and he's like super buff, but like in this it's like weird because you got the old people makeup, and then like here it's just like muscles and his skin is like smooth, and it doesn't make any sense. It just really threw me off. Other things about this episode, okay, first of all, Oma and Shu are lesbians in this, which slay. Also, they combined the Secret Tunnel episode into this too, and Aang is like busy with Boomy, so he's not there. So it's just Katara and Sokka there. So they completely axe like the Katang part of this. Honestly, I kind of get it because the age difference between the actors might make it kind of weird. Honestly, my biggest fear is that they're gonna change it and they're gonna make it like Zutara or something later on, and I really don't want that. I feel like at the very least, if they wanted to do it, they could have like hinted at it in some way, like that like Aang had a crush on Katara or like something. But yeah, they just had Katara and Sokka there instead, and it was like them like fighting, and then they like make up at the end. The whole Secret Tunnel thing was just like kind of weird. But yeah, there was that stuff, but this was also the episode with my two favorite scenes. So there's this one flashback scene with Zuko and Iroh, and it's Lu Ten's funeral. For those of you who forgot, Lu Ten is Iroh's son who died in the war. So in this scene, it's Iroh like there at his funeral, and everyone like goes to him to pay respects like one by one. And so Zuko goes to him and he gives Iroh this medal that Lu Ten had given to him after he graduated from his officer class in first place. So he gives it to Iroh and he says Lu Ten gave it to him to give him strength, and that this medal belongs with someone who is destined to do great things. And so Zuko gives it to Iroh, and he says that Lu Ten never needed it because Lu Ten is the strongest person he knows. So he gives Iroh the medal, and then he like sits with him to greet like the other like mourners. So he sits down, it like pans to Iroh and he starts to cry, and there's like an orchestral version of Leaves from the Vine playing in the background, and then at the end it turns into like a piano version. And bro, this is my favorite scene in the entire show. Like I actually almost started crying. Like it was just so perfect. It develops Zuko's character more and shows like how much he cares about Iroh, and it like really highlights the strength of their relationship. It was just so perfect. Also, random unrelated thought, but in the flashback scenes, Zuko's hair is like kind of different from how they show it in the original. Like instead of it being all up in a ponytail, it's more like the ancient Chinese style where it's like half up, half down. So I just thought that was cool. It was an interesting detail. Episode 5, Spirited Away. First of all, copyright infringement? But yeah, so this episode is where it starts to go downhill for me. So for one, they combine like too much in my opinion. They combine Heibai, Ko, and also going to Roku's temple at the end. So the winter solstice episode. And it was honestly just like really weird. So when Aang like meditates to try to get into the spirit world, he accidentally takes Sokka and Katara with him, which I don't think that's how that works. They were just trying to give them like more like screen time and like plot time is my guess, but like And then also like the owl from the library episode shows up, which was kind of random, and I don't know why they put that here. Like I don't know if it's to establish that the owl exists so that we can see it again later on, or if they're like gonna get rid of the library episode. Like I don't know what's going on with that. And then also they took out all the face stealing stuff with Ko. It's weird because they never say that you're not supposed to look at Ko with an expression on your face or else he'll steal your face. But when Aang is talking to Ko, he has a neutral expression. So it's like they're giving the vibes without like giving you the lore. And then also at the end, they don't even resolve the Heibai stuff. Like the whole thing with Heibai was the spirit's like upset that nature got destroyed, and then at the end Aang shows it that nature can grow and heal itself, and then Heibai turns into a panda. They just don't resolve that at all. They like show Heibai, they show Heibai being like angry about stuff, but then they just don't resolve it. Next episode, masks. The only real thought I had about this was it seems like they're killing the blue spirit plot. You know, same thing as the original. Zuko dresses up as the blue spirit and rescues Aang from Zhao, and then right when they were like escaping, he gets hit in the head with an arrow and that knocks him out. So in this show, his mask gets destroyed by the arrow, and then like when they escape, his broadswords get left behind, and then that leads to Azula figuring out that he's the blue spirit. So like it's just like revealed that he's the blue spirit. Like everyone knows now, which is not what happened in the show. So the vibe I'm getting is that they're just like cutting that out. Like, cause he dresses up as the blue spirit again, like later in season 2. So I guess they're just like getting rid of it. Again, I don't understand why they do this. Like, it seems like they already have specific plans for what they are and are not gonna do in season 2. So I guess they're just cutting out the blue spirit too. So the other scene that I really like from this show also has to do with Zuko. It's the flashback scene where like he does the Agni Kai with Ozai and then gets his scar. In this version, like when he speaks up during the war meeting, again, it's the same thing where they were gonna put some noob troops on the front line and have them as a distraction and sacrifice. And in this show, it's like a very specific division. It's the 41st Division. So when Zuko gets banished, Ozai is like, since you wanted to save the 41st Division so bad, you can take them as your crew. So Ozai tells this to one of the lieutenants when the lieutenant's like pissed about Zuko like treating them badly and like blah blah blah. So then like the crew realizes like the sacrifice that Zuko made for them. And so like when Zuko gets back on the ship, they all line up and salute him when he walks past. It's just so good. You really see the kind of person Zuko is and the respect that the crew gains for him once they realize what he did for them. Honestly, I just feel like Zuko was the writer's favorite character because he got all the good scenes. Episode 7, The North. So this is the episode that Yue gets introduced, and they made some changes that were kind of weird. She got healed by spirits, that's the same, but in this version, she is now like low-key part spirit, and she can travel to the spirit world as this three-tailed fox, and it's the same fox that Sokka saw during the episode where they got transported to the spirit world. Again, I just don't get the point. Maybe they were just trying to establish how like Sokka has a connection to her to like jumpstart their relationship, I guess. And that's the other thing too. In this show, I feel like him and Yue had less chemistry than he and Suki did. It felt like super insta-lovey, and there was like no like romantic tension whatsoever, in my opinion, as compared to him with Suki, where there like definitely was. And then there was somewhat similar sexism arc with Katara and Paku, but it just felt really super watered down in my opinion, because like, you know, they're beefing because like he's sexist and he doesn't want to train her because women don't fight. So she fights him, and then, you know, it's like the same thing where like she puts up a good fight. She doesn't win obviously, but like she shows that she is a good fighter, but he like doesn't even end up training her. It's just kind of like, oh, he respects her now and he'll let her fight and defend the North when the Fire Nation comes. So like, what was the point? But yeah, the last episode, Legends, I don't know, the vibes were just like weird. So the moon spirit gets killed, and then Aang like combines with the ocean spirit and becomes Koizilla, and then they're like, Aang is lost, all that's left is a vengeful spirit that will roam the earth forever trying to find its partner and never find it, and that the world is like forever out of balance. And I was just like, what? Like, that's not what happened. Okay, like, I guess it has like similar vibes. Like Koizilla goes crazy, and then when it sees that the moon is back, it chills out and lets Aang come back. Watching it, I was like, this just feels weird. I think mostly the part that felt weird to me is when they were like, Aang is lost. Like the spirit just like took over him and now he's combined with it and like it's taken over. Like that part just doesn't feel right to me. Like, bro's the Avatar, come on. But yeah, also random, but there's this part where Momo like saves someone from getting crushed by rocks, and bro almost dies. He pushes someone out of the way and then gets crushed by rocks, and then like Yue and Sokka take him to the spirit oasis and then they like save him. But like, I was just like, bro, like, what the fuck? And then also there's the fight with Zhao and Zuko, and then Iroh shows up and just like fucking nukes Zhao. Like, he straight up killed Zhao in this show. Okay, and then the last two things, they never do the thing where you find out that Paku originally proposed to Sokka and Katara's grandmother, and then also like he still gives Katara like the water from the spirit oasis, but they never mention the fact that it has special healing properties. That's like a very key important thing that comes up in season 2. So I don't know if it's gonna be like they're taking that part out, which would like really fuck things up, or if it's just like she'll just heal him with it anyway and it'll magically work and save him. I don't know. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Netflix's live action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Honestly, like I said, I just don't like it when they randomly change stuff for no reason and it negatively affects the characters and the plot. Honestly, if nothing else, I just feel like they try to condense way too much into 8 episodes to the point where like they started doing stuff that didn't really make sense, and they started to skip over important details. And like I said, one of the best things about the original is that the fillers still add value to the story. They develop the characters more, they develop the characters' relationships more. So the fact that the live action cuts this out just makes it so that the characters just don't feel any strong connection. Like I said, they added more scenes with Zuko and Iroh specifically, so I feel like their relationship was strengthened and also Zuko's character was strengthened in the show, but with everyone else, it was the opposite. I don't know if it was just me, but I feel like Aang was not in it that much, and bro's the main character, and there were just not enough scenes with Aang, Katara, and Sokka together. Like, it didn't feel like the gang, you know? It just didn't feel like they had like a strong connection to each other. I would say especially between like Katara and Aang, because I feel like in the original they're like besties, and in this, like, I feel like they just like don't have that many scenes together. But yeah, like I said, I feel like on its own the show is like kind of decent. Honestly, if nothing else, Ideally, you watch it after having not seen the original for a few years, so you forget all the important plot details, and then like you can watch this and be like, okay, like I see all the things I saw in the original, like this is kind of okay. But yeah, if you watch the live action and you were upset, at least you can go back and watch the original to heal. But yeah, that's all I had to say for this video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. I want to hear what you agreed with me on, what you disagreed with, and just like your general thoughts. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!